Hey everyone, welcome back to the video series of going from idea to app in just 14 days. I'm Connor, an iOS developer, and I'm walking you through day by day of how I built an app in just 14 days using AI, even if I had no prior coding experience. Today is day 3. We are going to be mapping out the core architecture of our app before we move into building a feature tomorrow. Yesterday, we decided on the MVP, or the most simple version of our app that we can ship and provide real value to a paying user in just 14 days. Our app is called Whisper. It is a voice-first mental health journaling app where you can just journal with your voice in a quick 30-second thought, track your mood, and it will just help you build a habit of mental health journaling to improve your mental health day by day. The core problem that we're tackling is people often quit journaling apps because they're too slow and require too much focus. Whisper makes emotional check-ins fast and flexible so that the habit actually sticks and you actually can use it to help improve your mental health without the complexity of a lot of apps that exist out there. Our 3 core features are: one is our journal entry creation, whether through text or your voice. We're going to do some smart mood tracking and leverage some AI to suggest some moods. And then we're going to have a streak and motivation feature to keep users coming back to our app. So today, we are going to focus on these 4 things. We're going to create an app icon. We're going to create a new project in Xcode, map out our data models, and set up the app navigation. So as a refresher, the design of our app is a simple, just tab navigation app. This is our main screen that we designed with ChatGPT, where they can quickly record and enter an entry. This will be the transcription here. They can play back the audio, track their mood, and it will save. And then it'll show them their recent entries. We'll have a calendar of their different moods showing on here and a stats streak screen. That is the core concept of what we are achieving here. So to get into it, we are going to start with our app icon. So I'm going to ask ChatGPT here for app icon ideas, and I'm going to actually use ChatGPT to generate the app icon for us. So the prompt I'll use here is says, I want you to think of 10 simple but attention-grabbing app icon ideas for this. We want something recognizable, easy, something that captures what our app is, but not too complicated, and is just a great starting point for our app icon. You can always change this later and make it better, but this is just a starting point for us. So here are the ideas that it's come up with. We can have a whisper wave W, a single smooth waveform that subtly forms a W. It's kind of a cool idea. Calm ripple, 1 dot with 3 concentric ripples, which kind of is our microphone thing. A page mic hybrid, mood, beads, whisper ribbon, heat map dot, shield wave, whisper bubble, halo check. I honestly like the first one. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to say, I want you to create an image for this one, and we'll see what it comes up with. The other thing I'm going to do as a test is run this in Nano Banana, Google's latest image generation model, to see kind of how these compare. I'll ask, when it's finished here, I'm going to ask it to write a highly detailed prompt to create an app icon like this, because Nano Banana needs a really descriptive prompt. And we'll see and compare how these look. So I'm actually going to take this over to Claude and ask it to write a really good image generation prompt for this icon. So just here in Claude, I said, this is an idea for an app icon. I want you to write a highly detailed prompt for this for an image generation AI tool. And looking at this one, I really like the way this looks. It's kind of like the blue vibe that we've got going on here. We've got a good dark mode theme because we're in a really focused, just easy to use kind of app. So I actually think this looks really good. I'm a big fan of this, but I'm curious to see how it compares with another image generation model. So once Claude's done with this, I'm going to go ahead and copy it, and we're going to bring it over to Nano Banana. So here in Nano Banana, just go to Google AI Studio. I'm going to just paste that right in there and see what it comes up with for us. Largely the same thing. We can kind of compare the two. I honestly like ChatGPT's better for this, so we're going to go ahead and use that one for our app. I think it looks pretty cool, and we'll kind of go from there. So since this is the icon that we're going to be going with, I went ahead and downloaded it, threw it into Figma, and just cropped it to make it look more like the app icon that we want. And we're just going to use that for now, and then I went ahead and exported it. So Now we've got our app icon, which is great. Now we need a new project in Xcode. So in order to do that, we are going to open up Xcode. We'll create a new project, an iOS app, name it. In this case, we're going to name it Whisper, next, and then you'll pick a place to save it. I have already done this. So here we have Whisper, brand new Xcode project. This is what it looks like when you first start a project. Nothing here except the basic hello world that you get inside the canvas. And this is going to be our starting point. So because we've just created our app icon, I am going to go to assets, drag this over as the app icon. I forgot it needs to be at a 10 by 24 size. So let me make that size adjustment in Framer really quick and then we'll move. Okay, so now that I have the new icon size, just select this, it's in my downloads, Whisper icon. Now we have got an app icon. So when we run this, this is going to be our app icon. This is not perfect. It's obviously got a little bit of space and color around the edges and stuff, but just for the sake of this video, keeping our icon simple, this works great, it looks great, and we're just going to go from there. Now we've got our icon, we've got our project in Xcode. Now we need to map out our data models for how we're doing this. So what are our data models? Data models are the way we're going to structure the data to be saved in our app so that we can actually save data. We're going to be using Swift data for the storage of this app so that it is easy and it is local on the device, and it will be private. We don't have to worry about an extra API for a service like Supabase or something. It's going to be all on device and going to make our app feel faster, and there's not going to be need to really load too much for this. So in order to do this, we want to go over to ChatGPT to help us map out these data models. And the reason I'm going to do it in this chat is because this chat has the context of our wireframes, how the app is going to function and flow, and how the app is going to look. So it knows what data needs to be presented for our application. So just a simple prompt here. I want you to help me create the data models for Swift data. I'm going to need for this project, keep them simple. Think about this logically. My minimum deployment target is iOS 18. And then we're going to go from there. Giving it the context of your minimum deployment target, which is the oldest version of iOS that your app can be installed on, is really helpful so that it uses more modern APIs and coding techniques for a project. So basically anyone with iOS 17 or older will not be able to download our app, but that is okay because one of the benefits of building on iOS is you get really large adoption of the latest software. More so than you do on Android. You do have to tend to have to support more versions on Android because people don't update their phones as much as they do for iOS. It also lets us use the newest APIs and tools for our project. And so our minimum deployment target is actually going to be iOS 26 for this project, but GPT-5 is not currently trained on iOS 26. So we're going to have to do some manual work there to make sure that that is the case. Then we can, for example, like the foundation models framework, the on-device AI framework from Apple, we're going to want iOS 26 for, and potentially a few other features that we add. But for the sake of working with AI and not confusing it and having to explain what iOS 26 is, we're just going to have it map these out for us. So here is what it's come up with so far. Close that and review this. So it's got a journal entry for us, which is great. We've got an ID for keeping them unique. It created at the date that it was created on, how long it is for the time interval, transcript, mood, the audio path, when it was updated, if it has audio or not, and then our initializer and app settings. Okay, why this is just enough. So it's going to explain why it is using these data models. So fast queries, a small database, which is going to be fine. App settings to hold unlock state, drop in usage notes. Okay, perfect. This honestly works for now. You can always adjust these later, but the point of this is just to have a starting point so we know what we're working with from the get-go. So now we've got our data models, because think about it like this, right? We've got our app. Going back up to it here, preview this. So what do we need to store for this app, right? We need to store an audio recording. We need to store a transcription of the audio recording. We need to store a mood attached to the audio recording or journal entry. And then we need to store multiple audio recordings We need dates on each of those so we can populate our calendar. And we're going to need a way to track streaks, right? Which is why we have dates stored with our journal entries, how many days we've journaled, what our best streak is, which is part of the app or user setting. We need to know if they're going to be a paid or free user and be able to track their entries for the free plan, whether or not they've upgraded so that we can decide if we need to limit their entries or not, how many streaks they can have, their calendar history, being able to export their data, all this stuff, right? So that's the basic what we need for a journal entry, which is the audio. We need the text, we need the mood, we need the date, and then we'll be able to use that data to track how many entries they have, whether or not they're a pro user, what their streak is like, and be able to have enough information to populate the calendar. So pretty simple. There's not too much we've got to do for that. So that's why I think these data models are great, because it does cover all of those things: the mood, the audio, duration, when it was updated, and then whether or not they're pro. If we're going to enable iCloud backup, we're not going to focus on that feature yet. Their current streak, their best streak, and their last entry day. And we'll probably create some logic for the streaks there. Perfect. Yeah, this looks really great. And like I said, we can adjust as we need to, but my instinct is that this is going to be good enough for what we need for this. So we just need our journal entries and our app settings. So the next thing is to set up our navigation. So based on our wireframe, I have said, I want you to write a highly detailed description of the navigation for our app. Think of every tab, screen, modal, typo there, or sheet that will need to be presented. I want a very detailed description of this so I can give it to our AI coding assistant and it will set up a navigation for our application. I typically keep my navigation in one file called app navigation, and in SwiftUI, I can reference that anywhere in the app to keep track of the navigation and handle it programmatically if needed. So here's what it's come up with for us, is that we have a root container, which is our 3 tab structure. We have our tabs. Each tab owns its own stack for future growth. That's exactly the way I like to do it. We've got our global states, whether they're starter or pro. It's going to explain all of this for the journal screen, where we can navigate to from there. Same with the calendar, stats. Perfect. Just skimming through this, it seems pretty good. Obviously, you'll go through and review this in more detail when you're working on your app to make sure it's what you want and what you expect. Make sure it matches the wireframe we've decided on. Maybe it's improved, like just check for things like that. It's even gone above and beyond to plan for deep links, which is like linking to a certain spot in your app from outside of your app. Maybe you sent someone like an actual link to a certain screen in your app, analytics waypoint. Okay, this is super, super detailed. We're not going to need all of this, but I'm just going to copy this and bring it over to Codex. So here we are in our app, right? And then I've chose Codex for this, for building our app. And we're going to set up the core structure of our app navigation. So I'm going to write a prompt here to get it to set up what our app navigation is going to look. Okay, so the prompt for this that we're going to use is, I want you to start this project off with setting up the core navigation structure. I want a file called app navigation that manages the navigation. This should be an environment accessible file, and I just paste it in the navigation that ChatGPT gave us just a second ago. So now while this is working, it's going to create our navigation setup for us. Okay, so now that is finished running, let's explore the code and what it's done for us so far as setting up the navigation. So I added this new app navigation file and went through and created all of this different information, even started a journal entry model for us, and has a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, so we're going to create a preview of the app navigation screen and see. Okay, so now that Codex is done with our app navigation file, let's see the changes that it's made. So it's added this new app navigation file for us with everything in one file, which I'm not a fan of, and I don't think it quite understood what I meant about the environment thing. And I'm going to show you, I'm leaving all of the mess ups and unsmoothness in this video so you can see what the vibe coding process is actually like, and how to be kind of wary of some of the pitfalls of using AI to code. So here's a few things that I want changed about this. App navigation. Okay, so what we want to change is we don't really want app navigation to be a view itself. We want it to be just like a manager of where a user is in the app. So I said, app navigation should be accessible from an environment object and not a view itself. And I want this to be the manager of the app's navigation state. So navigation paths, the currently selected tab, whether or not to show onboarding, whether or not a user is pro, and I want placeholder views for each tab. So this is going to separate our code out a little bit nicer so it's easier to manage. And we want to keep our files short just for good coding practice, but the advantage of keeping shorter files for AI is that you'll prevent it from reading code it doesn't need to read later on when you're building certain features. If we just kept with this is a 800 line code file. And what if this is like 1,000 or 2,000 lines and has our whole app in it? And then we're just trying to tweak one little thing of a view or a feature. Then it's got way too much context and it's probably going to get confused. And then we run out of context much quicker. And so it's just helps to keep things focused and clearly separated when you're coding out like this and being specific to your AI assistant to keep things clean. So it's really helpful to kind of just guide it through these things and be aware of how much context is being used as you're building out features. Okay, so now that Codex is done working, let's see how it's improved our navigation file. So I think it better understood what this is supposed to be. We've got different states we're tracking, and then we've got different functions to track different things. If you'll remember in that original thing we put into Codex, there is events to be tracked for analytics, which we're not going to get into yet, but this is a nice to have for the future. But I do want to warn you to be wary of things like this. Like if you're confused about what the instructions AI has given you from something like what we had here, if any of this is confusing to you, you should ask about it or get rid of it. Ask about it first, but then get rid of it if it's not necessary. Because like analytics is way out of the scope of our 14 days, at least for now. This is something like we're not focused on it right now. We're working on building our core features and things like that. Because if you're not wary of this stuff, you will just get a bunch of useless code in your project, and then that's not good. So this is looking a lot better and a lot more like what I was expecting. Now we have our navigation root view, which is great. I want to see this in a preview. So I'm going to go preview, navigation, root view, and take this over here and throw that on our preview actually built. So now we've got our placeholder stuff, right? We've got our journal, our recent entries, our calendar. It intentionally just wanted this all to be placeholder. But the point of this was we have our tab set up now. We can record a whisper and the screen will present. We can stop our transcription placeholder, mood selection placeholder. Like it already did so much for us, right? But we can see now that the app navigation is working. So this is really, really great. So the next thing we want to do is add our data models that we've come up with into this app, and then we'll call it good for today. And tomorrow we'll be actually getting the recording and journal recording entry feature working. So let's come back to ChatGPT, copy our data models, and go back to Codex and explain what we want to do. So I'm going to paste these in here, and I'm going to explain what I want it to do with this information. So this one's really simple. I just pasted the data models in there, and I said I want you to use the data models for this app. I want you to create files for each data model separately. So we're going to run the code, have it add these into our app, and then call it a day because we've got the foundation of what our app is. We've gone over the icon, the data models, and the navigation structure, which is everything we needed, right? We have our Xcode project as well. And so now we're in a really good place to start working on our first feature tomorrow. The nice thing about what Codex did for us today is it gave us just a good starting point of a visual place for how our app's going to be functioning. You know, like it's not perfect because we didn't give it the design that we were wanting yet, but like this, so for example, like this banner, we're going to want on top, right? The record and type buttons, we're going to want to look better. We're going to want our paywall to look much better. All these things we're going to be improving over the course of the rest of this video series. But for now, this is all just placeholder. Matter of fact, while this is planning out our data models, I am going to leverage our design here and get that going in the app as well. So we have a design system and instructions for AI to build with this design going forward. So while Codex is working on our data models integration, I'm going to ask GPT for a markdown file with only details about that design of the app. This will be a point of reference for AI tools to be building this app to ensure consistency. So it's going to write a whole file explaining the color choices here, the font choices, and everything that we need to build a consistent, nice looking app for our project. Okay, so Codex has finished adding our data models into the app. So it created a folder for us, which is really nice for organization. And then we've got our app settings one, our journal entry, and a mood, just to track all the options that we have there. So this is really, really solid. And now we've got our file for design. So I'm just going to copy this, bring it over to Codex, paste it in there, and then give it instructions of what to do with this. Okay, so I said this is the design scheme for this app. I want you to create a markdown file for your reference of the design of this app so we can ensure consistency. Also create a design file to make things easy to use, such as button primary, whisper font, .title, or color.whisper black. This way it knows I just want a very clean way to reference all of the design for this app. So we'll build things like a primary button, and a primary button would look something like this. Just a 7-day free trial thing. It's a primary action you want you to just take on the screen. So you would create a button, and then we'd add a style to it called .primary, and similar things for text fields, fonts like screen titles, colors, and things like that. We just want an easy reference for that stuff. So we're going to have Codex go ahead and make sure that we've got a design system set up so that when we build our journal feature tomorrow, it's going to look as we expect as we make it actually function. Okay, so now that it's finished adding our design file into our app, this is the reference, which is great. And then we've also got a design system. So this is going to be really nice so that we can ensure consistency as AI builds out the rest of our app. And hopefully we can even see a preview of this somewhere in the application. What was this called? Navigation root view, environment object, and navigation. Make sure that can build. I'm curious if it added any of the design into our placeholder. It did not, it did build a calendar for us, which is actually kind of crazy. I don't think this was here before, but this is great. So now I want to just try something. Journal home placeholder. So what if we did the button primary, which is our app style? That looks like the blue that we want. Let's see. Button secondary. What did it give us here? Okay, just gave us one primary button style, which is totally fine. We don't need other ones for, but this confirmed to us that this did work, right? We've got a primary button style for our app. So awesome. The last thing that we want to do is clean up the code a little bit because everything is in this app navigation file, which we don't want. So I just wanted to clean this up so we don't have everything in one file and split everything out in a way that makes sense. So we'll end the day with our app icon, our navigation structure set up in place, our design in the app ready to use, and our data models. So building our feature tomorrow is going to be super easy because we've already got a lot of the foundation things in place that we need. Okay, so now it separated our code out into some of its own files, but I want it a little bit more clean. Code files. Okay, so it took a little while, but our project is now much more organized. We've got a navigation folder with all of our different flows and screens and stuff that we're going to have in our app. So just as a quick check, we're going to run this on the simulator for the first time and see, okay, there's one quick error. It just says we need to import combine, which is fine. Run that. We just want to check and see that the code works. It compiles and that our app is running and didn't change too drastically. We're not worried about the feature so much right now. It's just a core structure that we set up. So one thing about today is that it's just more of a boring day, right? Like a lot of the technical stuff, the planning, the weird nuance stuff, but it's really valuable because it's going to set you up for success throughout the next days as we're building the fun stuff, the features that we have. As it refactored, it seems like it tried to incorporate some of our design. It's totally fine. I mean, it doesn't look great. It's not super readable, but that is not the point of today. It's stuff that we are going to fix tomorrow. The point is our app runs, right? It actually runs on the simulator and we've got our tab navigation set up and that's really all we need. So tomorrow we will be moving on to our actual first feature build out. But today, this is everything that we covered. And now we're fully prepared to start building really cool features for our app and get it out the door within the next 14 days. If you're interested in the full breakdowns and workflows and prompts that I use to build apps day to day check out my community, App Launch Club. App Launch Club is a community of builders where I help people build their first app with AI in just 14 days. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.